Imagine working tirelessly every single day, sacrificing your time, energy, and personal life, all for the goal of success. But what if I told you that the more you chase success through hard work, the further you might be from it? Sounds crazy, right? But stick with me, and I'll explain why grinding day and night might be the worst thing you can do for your future. In today's world, we're all told that success comes from hard work. You've heard it before. The harder you work, the more you'll achieve. But here's the truth. Working harder isn't always the answer. In fact, it might be a trap. Today, we're going to dig into why chasing success through sheer effort might be leading you down the wrong path, and how you can flip the script to actually work smarter, not harder. Let's get real for a second. We've all been told that success equals hard work. From a young age, we're taught to grind, hustle, and push ourselves to the limit. The more you work, the more you'll earn, right? But here's the catch. What if I told you that hard work doesn't actually guarantee success? What if it's all just an illusion, a trap that keeps you running in circles? Now, don't get me wrong, hard work does play a part in success, but it's only part of the picture. Think about it. We've all worked long hours, sacrificed sleep, skipped meals, and spent time away from family. And for what? To get closer to success? Or to get stuck in the endless cycle of more work and less reward? Here's where the illusion comes, man. Society has convinced us that the more time we put in, the better the results. But the truth is, some of the most successful people in the world don't work harder. They work smarter. Think of it this way. What if someone told you that success didn't come from working more hours or pushing yourself past your limits? What if they told you the secret was in strategic planning and prioritization? This isn't just some feel-good advice. It's rooted in reality. But before we jump into that, let's break down why this idea of more work equals more success is so deeply ingrained in us. We live in a world where hustle culture is celebrated. You see it everywhere. Instagram posts, motivational speeches, business gurus telling you to rise and grind until your dreams are a reality. But here's the problem. Hard work, especially when it's mindless, doesn't guarantee that your efforts are being channeled into something productive. In fact, it often does the opposite. Ever heard of the busy work trap? It's when you're constantly doing things, filling your day with tasks, but never really getting anywhere. It feels like progress because you're always working, but when you look up, you realize you've spent all that time doing things that don't actually move the needle on your goals. Let's take a step back and look at a real-life example. Entrepreneurs. There are countless stories of people who work tirelessly for years, often sacrificing everything, only to find out their efforts were misdirected. They worked hard, but because they didn't work strategically, they failed. But then there are the entrepreneurs who rise to the top by being strategic, focusing on what truly matters, and learning to delegate. They don't work harder, they work smarter. And you know what the difference is? They prioritize efficiency over effort. I want you to think about something. When was the last time you sat down and asked yourself, am I working on the right things? Instead of just hustling to check off tasks, have you been making sure those tasks are getting you closer to your ultimate goal? This is where Machiavelli's philosophy can change the way you think about success. He didn't advocate for mindlessly working harder. Instead, he believed in the power of being cunning, strategic, and efficient. His philosophy wasn't about outworking everyone, it was about outsmarting them. And this brings us to a crucial point. You don't need to work harder, you need to make your efforts count. But let's get real for a moment. This isn't just a motivational talk. It's about real action and understanding the difference between being busy and being productive. And I get it. It's hard to shake off the idea that if you're not working 12 hours a day, you're falling behind. But the reality is, the hardest workers aren't always the most successful. Take the example of CEOs or top-level executives. Many of them don't spend their time doing the work. They spend their time leading, delegating, and making decisions. They understand that their success comes from managing their time effectively and focusing on high-impact activities, not just working for the sake of working. And guess what? These people work less than most of us, but they get more done. Why? Because they focus on what truly matters. So here's the million-dollar question. How do you break free from the trip of hard work and start working smart? It starts with learning to prioritize. Instead of trying to do everything, focus on the most important tasks that will actually move you closer to your goals. It means learning to say no to things that don't serve your bigger vision, even if they make you feel productive in the short term. Next, it's about leveraging your time and resources. Successful people don't try to do everything themselves. They build teams, delegate, and find ways to scale their efforts. And finally, it's about strategic thinking. You have to step back and ask yourself, am I focusing on the right things? This might mean changing your approach, learning new skills, or even cutting things out of your life that aren't serving your success. The illusion of hard work is powerful, but it's time to wake up and break free from it. The next time you're working yourself to the bone, ask yourself, is this the smartest use of my time? If the answer is no, it's time to change your approach. Working harder won't make you more successful, but working smarter will. Let's talk about something that might be hard to hear, but is absolutely necessary: the efficiency trap. You've probably heard the phrase, work smarter, not harder, right? Sounds simple enough, but here's the kicker. Just because you're being efficient doesn't mean you're being effective. And just because you're working efficiently doesn't mean you're actually getting closer to your goals. Now you're probably wondering, what do you mean by that? Aren't efficiency and productivity the same thing? Well, hold on, let's break it down. Efficiency is about doing things quickly and with the least amount of effort, right? But the trap is this: you can be really efficient at doing the wrong things. You can knock out 100 tasks in a day, and yet none of them move you any closer to what you really want. Think about this for a second. Have you ever had one of those days where you're going, and by the end of it, you're exhausted but don't feel like you've accomplished anything meaningful? That's the efficiency trap. You're checking boxes, making progress in the wrong direction, and at the end of the day, you've done a lot of work, but you haven't moved the needle. This is where the problem lies. Efficiency without direction is just a waste of time. You're busy, but you're not productive. And here's the scariest part. Most people don't realize they're in the trap until it's too late. They get caught up in the cycle of doing more and more, always optimizing how they work, but never questioning whether what they're doing is even important. Let's make this real for a moment. Have you ever spent hours, maybe even days, working on something that felt like it needed to be done right now, only to look back and realize it didn't even matter in the grand scheme of things? I know I've done it, and it's frustrating. The world will reward you for being busy and efficient. But if you're busy doing the wrong things, all that effort is wasted. Efficiency becomes your enemy when it keeps you from focusing on the high-impact tasks that will actually help you achieve your goals. Here's a perfect example. Think about social media. Many people get caught in the trap of trying to stay on top of every notification, every message, and every trend. They might spend hours engaging, posting, liking, and commenting, but at the end of the day, did it move them closer to their actual goals? Not always. They've become efficient at responding to things that, while productive in the moment, don't really move the needle toward their bigger vision. And this leads to the next question. How do you avoid falling into the efficiency trap? Here's where it gets interesting, because it's not just about working smarter, it's about working on the right things. First, prioritize. We've all heard it a million times, but here's the thing. You can't be efficient at everything. You need to choose the most important tasks that actually get you closer to your goal. Think about it. If you're spending all your time on tasks that don't have a major impact, then you're not really being efficient at all. You're just being busy, and busy doesn't mean productive. Second, you need to focus on high-value work. Sometimes efficiency comes from doing less. It's about saying no to tasks that seem urgent but aren't important. Instead of spreading yourself thin, focus on what truly moves the needle for you, and focus on work that requires deep thought, strategy, and effort, and learn to delegate or remove the smaller, less important tasks. Now, you might be thinking, but how do I know if I'm working on the right things? That's where strategic thinking comes into play. Take a step back and ask yourself, is this task helping me get closer to my long-term goals? If it's not, then it's time to reassess and let it go. The most efficient workers are often the ones who know how to say no, how to delegate, and how to prioritize what really matters. Let me give you a quick example. Look at top-level CEOs or successful entrepreneurs. They don't waste their time on every little task. Instead, they focus on the big picture strategies. What's going to grow their business? What's going to push them forward? They rely on their teams to handle the smaller tasks, and they only step in for the high-level decisions. They understand the value of focusing on the high-impact tasks that actually move the needle forward. In the end, the efficiency trap is all about understanding this simple truth. Efficiency doesn't always equal progress. You could be the most efficient person in the room, but if you're not doing the right things, it doesn't matter. It's about being smart with your time and your energy. It's about making the most out of what you have, but also being strategic in what you do. So here's the challenge. The next time you're rushing through your to-do list or working on something just to feel productive, ask yourself, is this really moving me toward my goals? If not, step back and refocus on what truly matters. The efficiency trap is real, and it's easy to fall into. But with a little awareness and a strategic mindset, you can avoid it and start working toward the success you truly want without getting stuck in the busy work. Now let's dive into the real game changer. Machiavellian tactics for success. If you're thinking of scheming or backstabbing, hold up. Machiavelli isn't about dirty tricks for the sake of betrayal. He's about understanding the systems around you, making calculated decisions, and using your resources wisely. It's all about playing the long game, something most people overlook in the rush to succeed. If you haven't read The Prince, Machiavelli's most famous work, let me quickly break it down for you. His philosophy is centered around gaining power, maintaining it, and knowing when and how to make the right moves. It's not about mindless hard work, and it's certainly not about luck. It's about strategic thinking and tactical decision-making, something anyone can learn and apply to achieve success. Let's start with one of Machiavelli's core ideas. The end justifies the means. Now, this doesn't mean you should go around harming others to get what you want. What it does mean is that you should always be willing to adapt your strategy for the best outcome, even if it means stepping out of your comfort zone or making decisions that others might find unappealing. It's about understanding that every choice you make has consequences, and those consequences should always align with your long-term goals. Here's the thing about Machiavellian success tactics. They're not about being ruthless, they're about being ruthlessly smart. Machiavelli knew that in any power struggle, it's not always the strongest who wins, it's the smartest. And that leads me to the first Machiavellian tactic you need to understand. Learn to master your environment. Think about it. The people who succeed aren't necessarily the ones with the most talent or the hardest work ethic. They're the ones who can read the room and adapt to changing circumstances. In other words, they know how to play the game. They're experts at understanding power dynamics, reading people's intentions, and knowing exactly when to make a move. If you can learn to observe people, understand their motivations, and figure out where you stand in relation to them, you'll have a massive advantage. But here's where it gets interesting. Machiavelli also teaches the importance of being feared over loved. Wait, before you think this is about becoming a villain, let me explain. Being loved is great, but it makes you vulnerable. When people love you, they expect something from you. They think they know what you'll do next. But fear creates uncertainty, and uncertainty gives you power. Now, this doesn't mean being a tyrant or a bully. It means having the power to enforce your decisions, knowing that your words and actions carry weight. It means that when you say something, people listen. It's about building a reputation for being consistent, fair, and resolute. So when it comes time to make tough calls, others don't question you. The next Machiavellian tactic that plays a massive role in success is the art of timing. In Machiavelli's world, it wasn't just about what you did, but when you did it. Knowing the right moment to act can be the difference between success and failure. For example, let's say you're up against a competitor. You don't need to be faster or better than them in every way. Instead, you wait for them to make a mistake. You wait until they have overextended themselves or hit a low point, and then you make your move. This is something you see in business all the time. Successful entrepreneurs often wait for the right time to enter a market or launch a product, not when the competition is at its peak, but when they're vulnerable. It's about patience and preparation, being ready when the stars align. Another key tactic from Machiavelli is being unpredictable. Success often comes from surprising people and catching them off guard. When people can predict your next move, they can prepare for it and outmaneuver you. But when you keep them guessing, they're forced to adapt to you. Think about how unpredictable business moguls like Elon Musk or Steve Jobs are. They keep people on their toes, and in doing so, they create a sense of excitement and unpredictability. This tactic isn't about being chaotic, it's about strategic unpredictability. You want to keep others off balance so they can't anticipate your next step. This forces them into a defensive position and puts you in control. And finally, let's talk about alliances and relationships. Machiavelli wasn't all about going solo. He understood the value of alliances. But here's the key. Don't get attached to your alliances. Use them for what they're worth and know when it's time to break them off. People are temporary, and you have to recognize when a relationship is no longer serving your needs. One of Machiavelli's most important lessons is don't be afraid to change sides when the situation demands it. This doesn't mean betraying people for the sake of it, but understanding that alliances are fluid. Sometimes being loyal to the wrong person can hold you back, and sometimes the best thing you can do is switch allegiances when the time is right. So what can you take away from these Machiavellian tactics for success? It's all about mastering the game. Understand the rules, play to your strengths, and use your environment, relationships, and timing to your advantage. Don't just work hard, work strategically. Focus on the end goal and don't be afraid to use the resources around you, including your ability to adapt and make difficult decisions. Machiavellian tactics aren't about trickery. They're about playing the game like a pro. And if you do that, you'll be miles ahead of the competition. So, to wrap it all up, working harder isn't always the answer. Machiavelli's tactics teach us that success is about being smart, strategic, and understanding the game around you. It's about playing with the rules, using timing, mastering your environment, and knowing when to make the right move. You don't need to grind endlessly. You need to work strategically, focus on high-impact tasks, and adapt to changing circumstances. Remember, efficiency is important, but effectiveness is what leads to real success. So take a step back, reevaluate your approach, and start thinking like a strategist.